Hey everyone, this is Robert Keens at goldsilverpros.com. I'm here with a very special guest today, Mr. Chris Marcus from Arcadia Economics. Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Rob. Thanks for having me on the show. It's good to see you as always, and interesting times in the silver market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to start off with something you and I talked about yesterday. It was Jerome Powell and his recent comments on the market and interest rates. I know that you had a video up on this recently. Can you give us an idea of what he said and what effect it may have on the precious metals?
Well, he said the same thing that Ben Bernanke said, that Alan Greenspan said, that all of these guys have said. Perhaps the good news is that if people missed it or are just tired of listening to these guys talk, that's the great thing about gold and silver. It's not, if you can learn to accept that the price isn't going to react on a day-to-day basis, as I would suggest in a free market it might, or that it logically should. Because in the end, he said, we're going to print a lot of money. Just like he said last month, we're going to print a lot of money. He said the month before that, we're going to print a lot of money. And next month, you know what he's going to do, Rob?
Print a lot of money?
Yeah. And then, we got the election coming up this year. You know what both parties are going to do if given the chance?
I don't know, print a lot of money?
Yeah, and apparently GATA just sent out an email that now the Bank of England, someone over there is talking about negative interest rates. So shockingly enough, that means they're going to do what? So, you get like the bouncing ball. Everyone can sing along at home. Print a lot of money. In fact, I tried this the other day. It's a fun game. If you read like a CNBC article about Jerome Powell, you can just insert, like, translate every sentence is like, and the Fed was going to print a lot of money. And then after the government spends a lot of money, the Fed is going to print a lot of money. And, certainly not the way that I would do things if I were sworn oath to protect and serve. I don't have a sworn oath, and I'd like to give good information, and I think it's unfortunate that these guys that have so much control over the monetary system don't seem to follow that. But again, I just find the more that we can say, all right, this is the way the world is how do we make the best of it? And certainly gold and silver being some of the ways of doing that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we saw the run up in gold and silver after we had the issues with the economy from all of the shutdowns, and people were certainly bidding up gold, I think, as a safe haven asset, but there's a lot of demand that came into silver. And what I'm trying to figure out, is that demand from people needing the silver, like manufacturers, or is it monetary demand? Or what's your opinion on what's going on with silver right now?
Well, I mean, it seems, actually it's interesting. Looks like the deliveries on the COMEX might be a little lower than perhaps some of us were hoping for. Mm-hmm. Small, amount of metal coming out of the silver trust, which was the first time in a couple of months. So, on the other hand, you had Jerome Powell. What did he say again yesterday? Oh yeah, we're going to print a lot of money. Somehow it seems like somewhere like the media has just changed it from zero rates to 2022 until now 2025. So, I mean, we didn't see that really priced in again the way I thought it would, but everything from the I don't think there was maybe in the entire time I've been doing orders for Miles Franklin, we had one woman that I think had, some estate planning issues, but I have not seen, I don't do it day to day, someone handles that, but I've not seen many people selling metals, if any. I know Andy, when I have him on my show, says the same thing. So, I mean, you see people buying on a retail level. This past week aside, you see them. I mean, it's still going to be a big number on the COMEX. I mean, I don't know. I can understand if people are like, this guy, he's always talking about silver. Is he biased? But I mean, I can understand that. But it's like, is there a data point that you've seen that maybe I'm not aware of that shows anything contrary to supply being down, demand being up? it's like more one-sided. Like the Washington Generals have a better chance against the Globetrotters tonight than the dollar versus silver on a long-term basis,
Mm-hmm.
at least as far as I can see. That book, The Big Silver Short, is almost like an attempt to find like what could I be missing here. Um, but I think it's kind of like the movie The Big Short pointed out, where the fundamentals aren't the hard part. It's like we know we should go to the gym maybe, but do we actually follow through? Do we have discipline when market goes in your face? Do you feel like having patience, or do you throw in the towel? I would suggest things can be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. You can look at the long term. I don't know. It's like what plus what are the alternatives? I see Tesla shares up to $2,200 today. So or do you want to load up on negative yielding US Treasury debt?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fundamentals are clear in the way they're pointing out, and there's a disconnect from the futures markets and the metals. But there was a lot of disappointment this week, and I told my subscribers I thought that gold and silver could drift a little bit because a lot of the managed money investors who only like paper, sold out of their positions in September, and they're loading back up in December. And, what I told people is just kind of stick with it, because these markets tend to move over 3-month periods of time. As long as the futures market is seen as legitimate, and as long as they have any amount of metal, that's the way it's going to go. And I think, we do need to see more people take delivery off the COMEX to sort of break that system up finally. But what we can do as retail investors is continue to take deliveries. Buy from Miles Franklin, buy from your local coin dealer, and just take any available gold and silver off the market. Because what I see coming, and I wanted your opinion, given the shortages we've had, what happens if there's a run on gold and silver? What happens is if you say we have inflation, the Fed's printing money, we have some debt issues, people are running to gold and silver and they can't find it. I mean, how quickly can that happen based on what we've seen this year?
Oh, well, you're saying, what if we have a run on the metals? What if the Fed introduces a hyperinflation campaign? I mean, those are already happening. We saw some shortages March and April, then it calmed down for a while. Premiums have gone back up. I don't get the feeling that, I know some people think the dealers are just gouging. I know Andy was paying over spot as a dealer for many products, especially I know specific to the American Eagles. Dealers can't get those close to spot right now, is the last I heard. So he says it's getting harder to get.
Mm-hmm.
Which matches what I've heard. I don't see as close to it as he does, so I'll defer to him on that yet. Actually, another thing that was weird, when we hear like the U.S. Mint saying they're shut down because of COVID, we have a meetup group here in Denver where I'll be for another 2 days before I'm traveling. Hopefully I'll swing by and see you in Texas there soon.
Sure.
But we had this meetup group, and they have a tour of the Denver Mint, right? So I was thinking about it a month or so ago. I'm like, there was people for the tour, but like everything else was automated. It wasn't like, 1,000 guys in some shed where they're sweating, it was machines. I don't know what all of their facilities look like, but the idea that they're shutting down and starting back up, then they do have silver, they don't. Good luck getting a straight answer out of the U.S. Mint. Seems a little bit opaque, and why they're shutting down, I'm not sure. I don't know. It could be possible, but at least at the Denver Mint, it didn't look like something that would really be. We have people eating at restaurants and they're packed together, yet you can't have machines running in the Mint. So why are they slowing down? We never get a straight answer, but especially when you have demand going into the ETFs, demand going on the COMEX, and you have I mean, people are saying they're hammering the miners because their production was shut down. I'm like, okay, well, if they're somebody's realizing the production was shut down, wouldn't that factor into the supply? We have surges of demand while the supply is lower. So I don't think it's a complete accident. I'm sure there's some effects of COVID here and there, but again, whether it's this month or next year, I have yet to see anything that changes where this is ultimately headed.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think a lot of the stuff bubbling under the surface that people may not follow every day, they may just follow the price. There are some supply chain problems that are going to rear their ugly head. I think that's why we had the run in gold and silver we had the last few months. I agree with you. And I think a lot of other factors, you look at the fundamental factors, you've got all the debt, you've got the short-term paper the Treasury is issuing, they got to pay back and they don't have the tax receipts to do it. I mean, this is setting up for a really nasty fourth quarter. And I'm wondering if we're going to have a repeat in like what we had in 2018, where you saw the stock market correct 20%, but not in the stock market, maybe more in the bond market. It just seems like there's so much stuff building up, and it's just like you're seeing the pressure on the dam, but when is the dam going to actually break? Yeah, I mean, all that pressure is in the system, and it's got to break at some point. I mean, at some point in time, we've got to see the higher inflation. We've got to see people default, whether it be the corporates or some of these countries, and that's where you're going to get your flood. And with all the supply problems and the lack of metal, I think what we'll see the next time around is a faster escalation of gold and silver. But at the surface, people don't see that in the markets, and that's the problem. When you just follow the price, you don't see that in the markets. It kind of disguises what's going on.
Yeah, although I guess what makes life a little bit easier for me is that the metals will go when they'll go. It's kind of like, you read Peter Schiff's book in 2006 where he laid out to the letter what was going to happen with the mortgages. It's unfortunate I wasn't reading it till 2009, but at least, I was thinking, well, a lot of these guys saw it years before. Mm-hmm. And however hard people laughed at you or cared or didn't care, I mean, it went when it went. Mm-hmm. And the same with the metals, because again, what leaves me sleeping at night is that, I mean, we're this late in the game. I mean, it's not like the debt's, what is it, 26, 27 trillion, whatever it's up to now. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's, we're cutting it and it's like, well, we hope to cut $1 trillion next year, but we only cut 500 billion, so we're off pace. I mean, these guys aren't even talking about it. The Fed's not... So somehow, and did you notice this? How it's like in the last couple of days, all of a sudden I hear 0% interest rates for 5 years now. Mm-hmm. Which, if I can, and he said till 2022, like last month, and I'm like, that means it's never going to happen. And it was the same way when I don't know if you saw this. This was wild. It was 2 years ago, and I was watching one of these, his banking testimony. And it was like tucked in one of those things, even the financial people don't watch. I just happened to be lucky that I was sitting there. Never seen anyone else even mention it. Is that one of the senators says, and again, this is 2018, saying, so with respect to normalization of the balance sheet, you said that you're going to take it down to 2.5 to 3 trillion over the next 3 to 4 years. And Powell just looks back, he's like, yep. Excuse me? A, where did he mention this the first time? And B, so the new normalization is 2.5 to 3 trillion. Well, I thought Bernanke told us everything was temporary at 800 trillion prior to Lehman. So there's a nice little stealth 2 trillion tacked on. And when they say in 3 to 4 years, that means it's never going to happen. So similar when they say Powell, Bernanke, mix them into one, and he sits there saying, well, we're going to keep interest rates at 0% until 2022. This guy can't even remember his own data. Either that or he's flat out lying, because he keeps talking about how everything was fine prior to COVID. And okay, then why? my internet connection broken? That on your own website shows August last year started cutting interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, I was just reading this article. He had the audacity in June to say the banking system is fine. Okay,
Oh,
then
of
how
course.
come within a solid banking system, when something actually happens, you can sustain it rather than requiring unlimited QE and then you just keep upping the ante. So says 2022, whether Wall Street's now translated that to 2025. There's a very simple reason. You know, they can't. We saw at the end of 2018, just a little snippet. You got rates up to 2.5%. I mean, it wasn't like Volcker came in, you know, we were under like 25, 30% interest rates. We got up to 2.5%.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the government, you know, that how they're going to pay the interest expense on if you actually have an interest rate on the debt?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not even talking about it. They're not even trying.
Cool.
And frankly, to be completely honest about it, I don't think that's even the intention. I mean, I find it's a little bit more helpful if, at least for myself, I mean, imagine like a CIA goon or a banker imagine the bad guys in Indiana Jones. That's who's running this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't, you know, Uncle George and doesn't like broccoli and he's trying his best, but, you know, oops, sorry, I invaded Iraq. I mean, it's a broad day bank robbery. I mean, I understand people may or may not want to hear that, and that's fine. And hey, you know, I'm just sharing my opinion, but I think a lot of it's designed so that you get people sitting there like, oh, I can't believe this guy did this. And then everyone's busy fighting between Democrats and Republicans and missing that, you know, it's a broad day bank robbery. I mean, we could talk about Corona and a lot of the things that are very, in fact, Rob, do you know any, well, we'll leave that aside, but
You and I have talked about that before.
But just from the degree that if anyone wants to dispute that there was a lot of money flying out of there incredibly quickly,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least, you know, if some of it actually went to people who could use help,
Mm-hmm.
but we know where most of it ends up. And personally, my belief is that, you know, I don't think Powell is just a confused Keynesian, or maybe he is, but it's clear. I mean, you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, you know, and not just him. You know, we have Rothschilds financing both sides of the war. So I don't think the people making the decisions care about the country or that country. They care about money. And that's not maybe the way I would choose, but at least when I invest or make investment decisions or analyze what I think is going to happen, I find when you keep that in mind, you're going to have a much easier time figuring out what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think the clue is in what you started off saying, is that Powell is distracting people with what they're going to do, but he's not offering solutions. So he'll say everything's fine, but there's no solution in there to where he's going to make it fine, because like you said, he can't at this point in the system, in the Keynesian system. You know, as the Austrian economics wrote, there's nothing you can do but print. You either go to this big giant debt default, which scares the crap out of them, or you print your way out of it. And what he said, and you said very eloquently, is they're just going to print. And that's the stage we're in. So for everybody who's been waiting for the big pop in gold and silver, that was a clue as to what's coming. And we're going to get the big pop in gold and silver. Just have to be patient and wait for it. And I would say this for people watching this, get your gold and silver now, because we have shortages everywhere. Certainly get it through Miles Franklin, through Chris's website, or go to your local dealer, wherever you can get it, because I don't think we have a whole lot of time left. That's my opinion on this, relatively speaking, relative to, you know, the Keynesian system. And it's probably now or never if you're wanting to get into the precious metals with any size. And I think also, in addition to that, we have a conference coming up, Chris, that you're putting on called Silverfest, which is going to bring a lot of experts that are going to talk about all of this that we've talked about in a lot more depth, called Silverfest here in September. You want to talk about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Although if I could make a comment on what you just said.
Sure.
You know, I think the mindset is a big key in a lot of these things. And I would say, even as big of a fan of silver as I am, and I don't tell other people what to do, I share my research, why I left Wall Street, why I think a lot of this stuff is happening. Something I've been applying in my own life is letting go of thinking, all right, this is going to happen tomorrow. I need to do this.
Hmm.
I would say anything, make sure you do it at your own pace. As much as, yeah, I mean, the subtitle of the book was How the Banks Have Left the Market Place for the Short Squeeze of a Lifetime, which I do believe. I don't know. I mean, probably you could say anytime you say, well, I think it's definitely going to happen in the next month, odds are against that. I think it's coming overdue, but still, I mean, like, let's say for a second that silver goes to $50, but then you're realizing that the COMEX is a fraud. The metals actually are levered greater than 500 to 1.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think as this evolves, I still think it's very early, Yeah, I think if you can get metal, lower price is great, but just as a word of caution, first understand what you're doing in anything in life. Gold and silver will be there. Yeah, the price will go up, but I mean, the fact if someone's still listening to this episode of the show and hearing this conversation, if you're learning this type of stuff, I think one way or another, you're going to be fine. And in terms of in terms of learning about some of these things, yes, we will be having Silverfest September 11th through 13th. Rob, I'm excited. You're going to be giving a panel talking about what some of these mining stocks might do. Although who knows? I mean, it's kind of funny. Rob, did you know Silvercrest and First Majestic, at least as of a couple of days ago, their stock price is lower now with silver around $26 or $27 than when silver was 18. So who knows? Maybe by the time silver hits 50, we'll see these miners go. I know that's a question we talked about at your conference. And as you can see here, we'll be digging into a lot of things like that. There's how to pick great silver stocks. We'll be digging into the physical market, the shares, the paper market, how this all gets resolved. I think, Rob, I believe we don't have a consecutive 2-hour stretch without a silver giveaway. So I understand how important that is. And, I know us silver, we're often a bunch of hoarders, as much as we talk about silver as money and this great conductor of energy and electricity. So that's something that I just always thought was nice to try and get. There's something special about it. If you see like a young person and you give them an ounce of silver and it was like a 5-year-old child and they're just, so we'll be giving away a lot of silver. We have a lot of guests. Bill Holter is just confirmed, Ted Butler, David Morgan, there's this really smart guy, Rob Keens of Gold Silver Pros, who'll be involved. And I really wanted to create like a silver fantasy camp, so if you like silver, if you're excited about what's going on, especially if you're following the market, want to know what's going to happen, that's what we'll be doing at Silverfest. And starts off 2 weeks from this Friday. We'll be watching Trading Places, which Dave Kranzler claims he can quote line for line. So we'll see if we can add like the Kranzler feed. So you can like, if you're watching the movie, then you can press the Kranzler button. You get like a little picture-in-picture window of him sitting there. And, hopefully he won't be in his underwear with like topless with a beer. But
He'll be with his tennis racket.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if we can auction off something like an auction for a tennis match against Kranzler. Rob, maybe you can. Maybe we could get like some cool experience with you. I know a lot of people are really appreciating what you're doing. Maybe a consultation with Rob or something, and send some money to some good causes. But yeah, really just a positive celebration, something that's going to be fun. And certainly if you're at home and you like this stuff, but you feel like there's no one in your town or you're the lone wolf, I mean, this is the place to meet people. We'll have the video booths like at the Sprott Show. and come get your questions answered, have fun, and celebrate what's happening.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Chris, I wanted to add to that a little bit. When we had my conference last month, one of the things that really stood out was just the outpouring of support and all the people that came that really wanted to talk about this from around the world, from Europe and from all over North America. And we even had one guy come in from Australia, which is really neat. And I know that with your following, we're going to have a really big and engaged group. It's going to be a lot of fun. You've got a lot of activities built in there to kind of help people feel comfortable, especially if they're new to the space. But you've also got all of these expert speakers. So I cannot speak highly enough of the program that you put together. I know I will be glued to my screen the entire weekend for this. I'm clearing the schedule, telling my wife, don't put anything on the schedule. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think if there's going to be plenty of opportunities in my booth and certainly in yours, Chris, if people want to come and just talk about and ask questions and get to know people, we'll be there, certainly available at any time during the conference to help you guys out. And it was such a great experience last time. I'm really looking forward to it. So appreciate you putting this on for people.
Yeah, and I'm excited that we're going to have, the mining companies, we're finding out who's going to be there. First Majestic's going to be there. I think we'll have a bunch more, but also the YouTubers and the Silver Media. Rob, you're going to have your own booth. And I think that's something a lot of people are excited about, that it's great that we have YouTube and different people can get information out, and now you can talk with people there. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah. All right. Look forward to it. I think that's going to be it for today, but love you joining the channel, Chris. Thanks for coming back on. Look forward to seeing you again in the future, and good luck at Silverfest. Hope everybody joins.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll see you all there.
All right. Till next time, this is Rob with Gold Silver Pros.